Braxton, we hardly ever give him a microphone because
I'm too good.
No, it could be worse. You could give it to
no.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here behind the microphone. And you know, when Aida Touma was coming to speak at our national convention, which happened.
This is Dave Logston representing Veterans for Peace.
Thank you.
Chapter 27.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm too modest to introduce myself. So. Anyway, we just had our national convention and just concluded, and we had the opportunity to have Aida Touma-Sliman in town for the convention. So we thought, well, stay over another night. We'll have another little get together. And we thought we'd get about 25 people. No, actually, what Vets for Peace does is we put a bee in the bonnet of Wham, and we say, hey, you want to? And then they just take off. They do all the heavy lifting, and we come out and get half the credit. That's the way we work. Anyway. And here, I just want to mention that our national president, Jerry Condon, is here. And our executive director of national, the guy who, the micromanager of our group, Michael McPherson is here.
Before we officially introduce our guest, I do want to mention a few things, not a whole bunch of announcements, but I want to point out that these posters that we put on the wall behind us this evening are posters that are held up bravely and proudly every Friday afternoon, 4:30 to 5:30 at the corner of Summit and Snelling in St. Paul, Minnesota, where there is a weekly vigil to call for Free Palestine and to end the Israeli occupation. We also want to mention that the renowned David Swanson is here this evening, and he, famous author, lecturer, will be also speaking tomorrow evening at the Mayday bookstore at Cedar Riverside area. I want you to know that this microphone is taping tonight's presentation. Don Olson is taping for KFAI radio, and Carla is streaming this event live. So that's the the camera. If after Aida speaks, we'll have a couple things going on. We'll have not really a break, but I want to invite you to make, if you're willing and able, a donation to support this evening and Aida's work through the U.S. Peace Council and further programs as they come up. So we'll be, of course, passing the buckets in a little while. Also, because WHAM has a long-standing 36-year history of saying, well, you shouldn't go just around having meetings with no action coming out of them. So for each of you, I have quickly prepared a couple postcards addressed to your Minnesota, U.S. senators from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar in pale yellow, and Tina Smith in white, and they just have a brief message about some of the things that I think Aida may be speaking about this evening. And if you would like to sign these, we will put postage on them and send them in. These green cards, if you're not from Minnesota and you want to send a card to your senator, you can just put your senator's name and the state you're in, and we'll figure out the address and mail it for you also. So I'd say everybody should take a yellow, a white, and fill it out, and I'll pass those out after the initial talk, and you can fill them out during the question answer time, or you can just stay late And while the cleanup crew is working, you know, you can just fill these out. So thank you so much for coming. We're delighted to see all of you. And you are going to welcome and introduce the official introduction of our guest.
I guess I have to introduce myself. Really close?
Yes.
That's all right. It's okay. I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I'm Bahman Azad, carrying several hats. Member of Veterans for Peace, chair of Veterans Iran Working Group, executive secretary, organizational secretary of the U.S. Peace Council, co-coordinator of Hands Off Syria Coalition, and coordinator of the newly formed last year Coalition Against U.S. Foreign Military Bases. One of our coordinating committee members, David Swanson, is here, but we have many more people, including Representative Tarak Kauf from Veterans for Peace, who's on the coordinating committee. That coalition, and I would like to speak on behalf of the coalition, because we are having a big event coming up in Ireland, and I wanted to invite all of you to join us. The coalition came about last year, about the same time, in 2017. Quite a number of organizations, national organizations, 15, 17, came together to work together on trying to shut down U.S. foreign military bases as one of the main drains on our economy and of the basis of U.S. foreign military policy. So we had a very successful, excellent conference in Baltimore, Maryland, last January. And from that conference came a resolution that we should start an international campaign against U.S. and NATO foreign military bases, to include all of the movements against bases around the world. And we called for that kind of a campaign. We formed it, we helped it with other sister organizations around the world, and we had about 50 organizations from 50 other countries joining us in this new campaign. So together with R17 in our coordinating committee, we are talking about 60, 70 core organizations that are working on this campaign. We are holding a conference against US and NATO military bases in Dublin, Ireland, November 16 to 18. And we have quite a number of prominent speakers, including Jerry Condon, President. Actually, David Swanson will be chairing one of our plenaries, and Aida Touma was chairing our Middle East panel at the conference. So I wanted to invite all of you to consider coming to Ireland, and we have checked the tickets are so inexpensive these days that you can really fly very cheaply. Come to Ireland, and we have checked the hotels. They are not that expensive either. There are hostels that are for 20 euros a night if you're thinking of going to a hostel. But generally it's not the cost, it's the importance and historic status of this conference, because it is the first time that the world is coming together. Peace movement in the world is coming together to hold this conference and start a campaign. It's not just a conference. We are initiating. This is our first step toward starting an ongoing campaign against these bases around the world. And people from all over the world, including Cuba, Brazil, Portugal, Colombia, all the way to Korea and other countries are coming. And I'm honored to announce that Dr. Aida Guevara, member of the Cuban National Assembly and daughter of Che Guevara, will be our keynote speaker at the conference. So, and of course, a good number of members of the Irish Parliament. The spokesperson, military spokesperson of Sinn Féin will be there as a keynote speaker. So we have a lot of prominent organizations involved and individuals involved. So I have a few of these flyers that are left from our convention. I'm going to leave it here. If you are interested, please pick up a copy. But our website is nousnatobases.org. It's very simple. And you can get there all the information about registration, travel, everything else you can find there. And the statement of the position of the coalition that is signed by 500 different organizations now as endorsers of the campaign. So, and quite a number of individuals. So, that out of the way, now I have the honor of introducing my dear friend Aida. Aida is a member of Israeli Knesset Parliament from Hadash Joint List, which is an organization of the joint grouping of several Palestinian organizations inside Israel that have formed the coalition and have run for election. And apparently, as far as I know, it's the third largest bloc in Knesset at this moment. Aida is also the chairwoman of the Standing Committee, Knesset Committee on the Status of Women and Gender Equality in Israel, which is the first time that a Palestinian MK has been holding that position in Israel. Aida, from 2011 to 2015, has been the chief editor of Al-Ittihad, the only Arabic newspaper in Israel. And she has also she's also a member of International Women's Commission for Just Peace in Israel-Palestine. Aida is currently a member of the Political Bureau and Central Committee of the Communist Party of Israel, and also president of the Peace and Solidarity Committee in Israel, which is U.S. Peace Council's sister organization, as a member of World Peace Council. So, I would like to introduce to you Aida Touma. It's an honor to.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you. Thank you for giving me the honor to have my last public speech in the United States here with you. Yeah, that will be my last public speech. I have other meetings in New York, but they are not so public. I'm happy to be here, and it seems to be not as much happy as this wonderful guy there. No, leave him the way he is. Actually, I have never thought that all these terrible things that I'm doing are going to bring so much laughter to someone. I owe really a good thank you to U.S. Peace Council, who mainly organized this tour, and for all the other organizations who co-sponsored my tour, which is coming in a very crucial timing for us as Palestinians, as citizens of Israel also. This day was supposed to be from the beginning of, from the morning, was supposed to be the only day that I didn't have real commitments of speaking to people. I wanted only to attend the last day of the Veterans for Peace, but of course things that are happening back home is not leaving us quiet in any way. While I'm here, it seems to be that my tour and my meetings that I'm holding, mainly a meeting that I did with the Deputy of the General Secretary of the United Nations for Political Affairs, got some people furious back home. And all over the place, on all the, I discovered that it's in all the newspapers that the ambassador of Israel in the United Nations have claimed that I am giving a bad name for Israel in the world. Although everybody knows that as much as I can be good, I will never compete with them, with this government of giving a bad name for Israel. Because what they are doing is only showing the world the reality that is happening now in Israel. I would like to clarify from the beginning that in the Knesset I'm representing 20% of the citizens of Israel, the Palestinians who stayed in their homeland, the Palestinians who managed not to be deported, not to be thrown out of their homeland, and managed to grow in numbers and to become 20% of the citizens of Israel. But I'm also representing the Jewish democratic forces who are insisting to be partners in the struggle for creating a different situation for the two people in that homeland, mainly to liberate the Palestinian people from the continuous Israeli occupation in the lands of 1967, and to create a situation where inside Israel people are living in a democratic country, in a state that respects all of its citizens and treat them equally. The situation that did not exist till today. Anybody who knows the reality inside Israel, and I know that most of you are very well aware of the situation of the Palestinian people in the West Bank or in Gaza. And I know that it is capturing the main news here in the United States when the Palestinians are mentioned in the news. But also among the peace movement, I can see here that you are addressing the main issues coming from the occupied territories. I had the honor to be there when Aida Tamimi was released 2 weeks ago. We waited for her at 6 o'clock, and the occupation could not really do it in a human way, just releasing her and to make her family, get to meet with her quickly. They had to move us from one checkpoint to another for 3 hours, saying every time that she will be released from this checkpoint, and we had to travel to another checkpoint until she was released eventually. This courageous young woman who all of her crime was that she slapped a soldier who was 5 minutes before that shooted her cousin just in front of her house. And she had to spend 1 year in jail because that move she did in her hand. And in my opinion, when she slapped the occupation, that was more a slap for the whole world to wake up and to see. And to see what is happening. Of course, you know also about the situation in Gaza. And I'm sure you are following after the news coming every Friday because of the return march that started last March and is continuing. And it is treated very brutally by the Israeli army, not taking into consideration in no way that these are civilians who are protesting mainly for life and not to be killed on the borders. But when people get into a situation where they understand that they don't have anything more to lose and their life is almost death, they go out and they demonstrate and they understand that this is the only way to bring their voices to the world. We wish that there were no shooting at those people and no thousands of Gazans were injured through these demonstrations. More than 173 were killed till now, since March till today. And the world, it seems to be, except the few of us, is going silent about this brutal crime that is continuing. Knowing that you know all of that, I want to take this presentation tonight to a different angle. I want to speak about a new development that happened just 1 month ago on the 19th of July at 5 o'clock in the morning in the Knesset. Usually these hours are not supposed to be legislation hours. These are hours that thieves work in. But anyway, we had to work till 5 o'clock in the morning because the Knesset and Mr. Netanyahu mainly, on a personal level, wanted to promote the law that is called the nation-state, Jewish nation-state law. This law is a basic law. It's a basic law, meaning have the same status of a constitution. It's going to be forming with other laws that are existing or to be legislated later as the Constitution of Israel, which you all, I don't know if you know or not, Israel till today do not have a constitution. 70 years old and there is no constitution, mainly because one issue that wasn't solved in this basic law, which is the borders. Israel till today do not or don't want to define its borders. This basic law that is supposed to define the state of Israel and to put it on paper and to get it into the laws book, the Israeli laws book, also did not deal with the borders. The basic laws speak about the definition of the state as the state of the Jewish people of all the world. It says what is the flag, it says what is the anthem, it says what are the symbols of the state, but do not mention the borders. Why it is so crucial that such a law should define the borders, and why I'm mentioning this in the context of speaking also about the Palestinian issue in general, the Palestinian cause in general, because the law starts with two words. The law starts with the words land of Israel. Land of Israel is the homeland of all, the historical homeland of the Jewish people. Meaning, from the beginning, the borders have extended. When you are talking about the land of Israel in the biblical way, or the way it is used in the Zionist discourse, you are talking about the land that exists in between the Mediterranean, the sea, and the river. And I'm saying in the Mediterranean, I'm not gonna define which river, because there is a debate also, which river. Is it the Jordanian river, or it is in Iraq? So the minute you are defining a state, and you are talking and defining from the beginning the land of Israel, you are extending the borders of Israel. And you are in a huge contradiction with the international resolutions and laws from the first paragraph. Because the international law and the international community resolutions say it very clearly that the Palestinian territories occupied in 1967 are occupied territories. They are not part of Israel, and they are not supposed to be part of Israel. This mixture in the terminology between land of Israel and state of Israel is meant to confuse from the beginning. But not only to confuse in an innocent way, in my opinion. It is meant to declare historical, of course from the point of view of those who voted for that law and promoted that law, a historical narrative and a future situation. Declaring this from the beginning, it is erasing the other narrative, the narrative of the Palestinian people who existed in that land and who claim the ownership and that this is our homeland as Palestinians. But also defining the future, because it is leaving the possibility, and you will see it in another article, the possibility of annexing the Palestinian territories occupied in 1967. Yesterday there was a big ceremony in one of the settlements, and Minister of Education Bennett said in his statement when he spoke to the crowd there, we managed to change the discourse that is existing from a discourse of two states into a discourse of regaining our homeland, meaning the West Bank and Gaza. The same party and the same ministers of that party, which is the Jewish Home, which is known also as representative mainly of the settlement movement in the occupied territories, also say that they want to change the disengagement, of course not of Gaza, as you would think, because usually when we talk about, or when they use the word disengagement, they are talking about Gaza and the plan to withdraw from Gaza. The disengagement of the north of Judea. Disengagement of north of Judea in that terminology is the north of the West Bank, where the PNA is existing now, meaning Ramallah, meaning all the villages around Ramallah and all that area. They want to finish the disengagement from there. What does it mean to finish a disengagement? Meaning going back, meaning being engaged, being part of that territory. Another article that is very clear from that law is that the unified Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, meaning including East Jerusalem, which is again by the international law, by the international community, is an occupied territory. Israel had a law that said that Israel is annexing East Jerusalem. Of course, they say liberated East Jerusalem. And now it is in the basic law saying that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Okay, someone else in this country have said before that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel and even moved the embassy. President Trump moved the embassy of the United States from Tel Aviv into Jerusalem in order to create facts on the ground and to say, we are recognizing the so-called unified Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And I have to say that I read 2 days ago that in one of his speeches just 2 days ago, President Trump said we finished the issue of Jerusalem. And now, of course, what's on the agenda? The second issue, the refugee issues. The cuts that are going in the UNRWA and the fact that they want to withdraw from the recognition of 5 million Palestinian refugees all over the world, saying that only 500,000 are refugees. I have just to remind you that those two issues were one of the 4 core issues that were still pending in the negotiations to be held among Palestinians and Israelis. So 2 issues are taken out of the table, while a basic law is also following on that and putting facts in a legal Israeli way by putting the basic law that says that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Some people would say, okay, this is an internal Israeli issue. Israel can do whatever internally, can decide for itself, and can, legislate whatsoever because it is an independent, sovereign state. That's true. It is an independent, officially, in my opinion, not totally independent, and acting as a tool sometimes to serve other interests in the region. But even on that level of sovereign state, independent state, the minute you start to mix the external, the occupied territories with an internal issue, you already declared that it is not an internal issue. The Knesset have declared already that the basic law that defines the state of Israel is not a pure internal issue of Israel. So now all the attacks on me in the newspapers today, that I am calling for an international intervention on an internal issue of Israel, you know what? They are not lying. Yes, we said that, and we are going to continue to say it, and I declared it on the podium in the Knesset through the debate of the law. You are now making this issue as an international issue because you are now trying to define how the Palestinian situation will be solved, and that this law is becoming a colonial law. A colonial law that wants to preserve and continue the occupation of an occupied territory. So the international community has to say something about this. I'm not calling for troops to come to Israel. You know, I'm like you, women against militarization. But for sure, I am calling for a political position by the international community of what is happening and what is going to be established. In my opinion, this law is not only a colonial law, but it is also officially a declaration of the establishment of an apartheid regime in Israel. And when I still remember that in the United Nations, they decided to create a special committee that was supposed to investigate the crimes, but also to investigate what is happening under the apartheid regime in South Africa. And it was dissolved when the apartheid regime in South Africa fell down. So the international community have a say. The Charter of the United Nations, which Israel is a state member of, says very clearly what are the values that the different state members should stand for. And what we are saying here, that this law stands in contradiction with the values of the international community and with the Charter of the United Nations. And of course, it's not only, it is very important what I have said about the Palestinians under occupation in the West Bank and Gaza. And many people will tell me, so what? You are talking about you, the Palestinian who is living in Israel and who is serving in the Knesset. You know, one of the things that were said by the Speaker of the House today as a reaction to my tour and to the meeting that I had in the United Nations, that he regrets very much that members of Knesset are using the Israeli democracy, by the way, who are paid by the state, meaning my salary is coming from the state, as if from their own pockets. You know, I'm paid from the taxes that are paid by my constituency, the people who wanted me to be there, who wanted us to express their position and to represent them. So nobody's doing us any favor. We are paying for ourselves. They said that they are, he regrets that I'm using the Israeli democracy in order to speak out. And the chair, my colleague, the chair of the House Committee of the Knesset, has already applied for changes in the regulations to punish the members of the Knesset who go out and speak badly about Israel. So welcome democracy. This is, even saying this is not democratic. But let's say they are so furious, they are so angry, they say things. But the facts on the ground have been 70 years that there is a systematic discrimination of the Palestinian citizens of Israel. You can touch it in all spheres of life. You can see it everywhere. You can see it in the 45 villages that existed before the establishment of the State of Israel, existed before in Nakba, and yet they are not recognized till today by the State of Israel. Have you heard ever about the unrecognized villages? These are villages, exist on the ground, but the state do not recognize them. That means not delivering any services. The people pay the taxes, all the taxes, they don't get any kind of services. You know why? Because they want to confiscate the land. Because they want to take the land they are sitting on. Claiming that they don't have, papers of ownership over the land. And historically, many of the people have been dealing with the land issues orally, without documentations. In Canada, it's a well-known situation with the indigenous people. And by the way, some people don't like it very much, but we are also, by the international definition, we are indigenous people, and we have the right of indigenous people, including the right of self-determination that was denied totally by the State of Israel in this law, saying that the right of self-determination in Israel is only and solely for the Jewish people. So the Jewish people who are sitting in the United States of America and practice their right of self-determination to be citizens of the United States of America have more right of self-determination inside Israel than me, who is sitting there, who is living there, who is struggling every day for a better situation for all of the citizens of Israel. So we are denied this right. This practices and policies of discrimination, and I can give you hundreds of examples. And you just have, to Google it and you will see. There's a lot written about this issue. The last one of them is the fact that Netanyahu's government and Netanyahu himself is leading an attack over our political rights. And he's trying to delegitimize the political activism and representation of the Palestinian citizens of Israel. It happened in the last cadency of the Knesset when they legislated the law of raising the threshold to the Knesset, which exactly was 2% above the biggest percent reached by one of the Palestinians' political parties' representation. Meaning exactly they raised it 2% that the 4 parties cannot be represented in this Knesset. So that's why we got together, the 4 of us, despite the different ideological backgrounds. In our joint list, which became the 3rd biggest body or faction in the Knesset, we came together communists, Islamists, liberals, and nationalists. The 4 of the different parties. We had a political agenda agreed upon and a social agenda agreed upon by all of us, and we ran together and we got to a situation where instead of being kicked out of the Knesset, we came back even stronger than before. So now the next step you saw it in the last election when Netanyahu said on the same day of the election, calling the Jewish majority, mainly the right wing, please come and vote, because the Arabs are coming in groves to vote, coming on buses, and you have to rescue the country. That was an act of racism, but it was also a political act to delegitimize the basic right of the Palestinian citizens of Israel and any citizen all over the world is to vote. That's the basic right. And he wanted to delegitimize it, and he continued, of course, all the time, including this attack that is happening today in the newspapers over my political activism. So this law is going to that direction, but the main debate that we had over this law was two major debates. One is that we looked very carefully in the text, and beside the fact that the Palestinians were absentees in that law, 20% of the citizens of Israel were not mentioned at all in that law. We are the absentees. There are two words that are not mentioned in the definition, in the law that define the state of Israel: equality and democracy. You read through all the articles, there is no equality, there is no democracy. And for those who know, there was and still existing a law from 1985 that defined Israel as Jewish and democratic. And it looks like Netanyahu ended the debate about the conflict between having the state as a Jewish state and democratic, and said very clearly, by this law, finish democratic, now we are focusing on Jewish. And this is our main goal. And you can see it in Article 7 of the law, when it says very clearly that developing and building Jewish settlements is a national value. Well, this is the new version of the article. The article before was that the state of Israel have the right to establish settlements for one group of people by the nation, nationality or religious affiliation. It was too blunt. It was too much to present it to the world, because everybody then understood that instead of that, you can just write a big sign in the entrance of any city and say, only for Jews. And you can imagine how the world will look at such a thing. And they understood, but the new version is not less, in my opinion, it's even worse. Because it says very clearly that what was existing till today as a policy, like in the case of al-Hiran, a village in south of Israel, in al-Naqab. It's a village that existed since 1952, when the Israeli army asked the people who are living there to move from the border near Egypt, because there are military action going on, and asked them to move to this place and to establish their village in that place. Now al-Hiran has an order from the government issued by the Supreme Court to be evacuated, the people to be displaced, and to build on those lands a Jewish settlement called Hiran. They took off al-Hiran, so now it's Hiran. This policy that existed, and we were fighting against it, and we went to the Supreme Court, and the people, I don't know if you remember, a year ago, they tried to demolish the village, and the people, and one of the people, of the inhabitants of al-Hiran was killed. He is by the police, and they called him in half an hour a member of ISIS, and he was trying to commit a suicide against the police. That was the story that went out in half an hour. A teacher who is teaching in the formal educational system of Israel, in half a minute they could discover that he is a member of ISIS. For 38 years they didn't discover that when he was teaching in schools. But immediately there was investigation. We did not, and of course my colleague and the head of our faction who was there solidating with the people was shot in his head. MK Ayman Audi was shot in the same evening, and it was good that it wasn't a serious injury except a big wound here. So this policy that we were able to confront by legal methods, by parliamentarian discussions, by organizing the people against it, from now on, it's a legal policy. It's a policy that is integrated in the law. The minute the laws say that it is a national value, the Jewish settlements and developing the Jewish settlements, then confiscation of land, moving people from their land, demolishing El Araqib village 130 times in 3 years is becoming normal. Is becoming the normal situation. So this law is changing reality from the, how you say, axioma, you say? The taken for granted value, equality among citizens, that wasn't practiced really, but at least that was the understanding that citizens should be equal. From now on, discrimination is the normal situation. And by this law, even there is a possibility in the future to see some right-wing people claiming to or appealing to the Supreme Court against a policy, an equal policy that is treating all the people of Israel equally, or the citizens of Israel equally. Because discrimination now is very much legalized, and superiority of one group over the other is also understood. You have to understand, this law is affecting the Palestinian people in the occupied territory very clearly. As I mentioned, it's a colonial law. But it is also doing a classification of the people who are living inside Israel. And by this law, there is one high class from now on, which are the Jewish citizens. After that, there is us, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, who wouldn't be that equal because developing our settlements is not equal. We are not, this is not our historical homeland. This is not our place. We are just by chance there, you know. And there is the third class, which are the residents of Jerusalem, the Jerusalemite people, and the Golan, Syrian Golan Heights under occupation residents. Why I'm saying this? Because everybody, if you don't know, Israel unified, annexed East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights, but did not recognize the residents as citizens. Meaning they are residents, and there's a huge attack on the Jerusalemite people, what we call a quiet transfer, by taking their documents from them and denying them to come back to Jerusalem if they are away for more than 3 years, even to work outside Jerusalem. And there are more than 10,000 Jerusalemites who lost their identity documents because of that. And the Golan Heights people, they are residents, they are not citizens. It's a new, also new old class that exists in Israeli new reality. So if this is the situation, if this is what the law says, does anybody expect that we lay back and we sit and do not call for any kind of international solidarity with us, not with us only as Palestinian citizens of Israel, but also for those tens of thousands of Jews who marched with us on the 11th of 8 in the streets of Tel Aviv, because they insist that they want to live in a normal state that is democratic, that is equal, and that is not practicing occupation anymore. So when we are speaking, we are not speaking about ourselves only. We are speaking in the name of all of those who refuse this new reality. This law has been passed with a majority of 62 members out of 120. Can you imagine a constitution that is formalized and legalized in any country with only the consent of 50% of the population? This is even not what the international laws say. One of the conditions is a kind of consent. Usually people have public debates. I also spoke about how I was fascinated about the experience of the South African when they wanted to write their new constitution, how they went from one supermarket to another, from one home to another, and asked people, what would you like to see in the new constitution? Which rights you think you want the constitution to protect? The constitution is supposed to protect and to put the platform for the citizens, not for the state to oppress its own citizens. And this is the situation in this law. It is more for the fanatic, right-wing, racist government who is ruling this country, and not for the two people who are living and citizens of that country. The other thing, of course, that, as I mentioned, it is against the international law, because I said 62 has agreed. You have to know 55 opposed the law. 55 members of the Knesset opposed and 2 abstained. So this is the huge majority this law got. From the first day, the same moment that this law have passed, even before, in our debates in the different committees and in the General Assembly of the Knesset, we said it very clearly, we are not going to coexist with an apartheid regime legally now, officially now. And we will continue to struggle to abolish this law. The minute it passed, the minute our struggle to abolish this law also started. They were created together, the law and the struggle. And we are going to continue. As I told you, more than 60,000 people marched in Tel Aviv against this law, and we are continuing and we will continue. In the parliament, one of the things that we are thinking to do, this law says that the only official language in Israel is Hebrew. Arabic is not official anymore. So one of the things we are thinking to do when we go back to the Knesset mid of October is to give speeches for a whole month only in Arabic. Yeah. And we have declared already by the High Follow-up Committee, which represent all the Palestinians, those who vote to the Knesset and those who do not vote to the Knesset. This is kind of more popular organization that was created by the different political bodies among our community. We declared the next school year that will start beginning of September in few days as the year of the Arabic language in our schools. Sure. We also decided that all of our local authorities will promote bills, local bills and laws in each locality, that signs will be only in Arabic in our villages and towns. We are trying to think about different ways to express our rejection to this law. The Israeli government insisted to make it a common struggle of all the Palestinians all over the world. Because the minute you erase a narrative of people, you erase their existence, and you erase their human rights, they have to get together. But I'm telling you, this law is supposed to segregate between Jews and Arabs. Our struggle is going to segregate between the democratic forces from the Palestinians and the Jews, from the fascist right-wing forces, whoever they are. It's not going to be only a struggle on a national basis. It's going also to be a struggle for democracy that unites people against the fascists. My last comment is that it's always encouraging, and I'm telling you, I'm going back home full of energy, energized by all the people that I met and the support I got and the solidarity that you shown to me. But we still need you. It doesn't end today. We are in front of a long-term struggle, it looks like. In the last 3 days, I was sitting here hearing the news. There were 3 incidents each day, one incident of attacking Arab young men, injuring them on the basis of being Arabs. 3. Today, it was that 2 young Arab men were stabbed by Jewish young men that they say they don't know them at all. They just came and stabbed them. Yesterday, the settlers injured Ta'ayush, an organization, activists who were trying to protect the Palestinian people who were working in their land near the settlements. They attacked them, they injured them, and the army was there and didn't intervene or protect. Day before, 3 young men, 2 physicians and 1 who is working with them in the hospital were on the beach, swimming, and the young Jewish men came to them and asked them if they are Arabs. And when they said that, yes, we are Arabs, they left them, and they felt something is wrong, so they called the police and told the police that we feel that we are threatened. In few minutes, a group of a lot of Jewish young men came and attacked them in the beach, and all of them were injured and in hospitals now. We are fearing that the incitement that is used every day against the representatives of the Palestinian people in the Knesset, and through us against our constituency, is shifting to a violent actions that can be taken by group of fanatic people who do exist, for my regret. That's why I'm telling you, we need you to echo our voices here. And we know that we share the same values, but we share also the same struggle. Who's sitting here and taking the decisions, and the new administration you got is supporting unlimitedly Netanyahu and his government. And Netanyahu and his government is supporting without limits Mr. Trump. So your struggle is our struggle, and our struggle is yours. Whenever you are more vocal, whenever you are struggling more, you are helping us. And we believe that when we are doing it, we are also helping you. Thank you very much.
And oh right, water, we should have brought it up here. Thank you so much, Ida. Take a breath, think of your question. We're going to pass around a donation bucket or two. I've got a couple up here to help if you can and are able to with this evening's events. And that didn't make sense. But I'll also pass out postcards for you to sign. And if you would, thank you, Carol, if you would either leave the postcards on the table or put them in the basket at the back table, that would be fine. And I would ask if you put up your hand and have a question, and also introduce yourselves to us and say your name and then your question, okay? Okay. You know? Okay.
Yes, thank you
Now,
very much.
please, let's be able to hear the questions. Okay?
I have two questions, I guess, about the politics of Israel and the Knesset. One, I think you've already said that the vote among the Jewish members on the nation-state law was 62 to 55.
Yes, but 55 included us.
Oh, okay. And my first question is, there are 120 members of the Senate. You are
Chuck.
The Arabic citizens of Israel are 20%, you said, but you don't have 24 members in the Knesset.
No.
No. How many members do you have?
We have
Let her
13.
speak in the microphone.
We have 13 in our joint list. There are other 5, that's why I'm 13 in our list are 12 Palestinian and 1 Jewish comrade who is serving with us. There are other 5 Palestinian Arabs who are serving in Zionist parties. One of them is a minister. That shows very much that the division is not between only Arabs and Jews.
And my other question is, do you see any possibility that the Israeli High Court might rule this law? It wouldn't be unconstitutional because you don't have a constitution, but illegitimate.
Okay. You have to take into consideration that one of the major campaigns that was led by Mr. Netanyahu in his in this cadency seems to be sensitive to the name.
Don't put anything close to the
I'm not putting.
No, I stepped on it. No, I stepped on that.
Okay. One of the major campaigns that were led, Netanyahu understands that he wants to continue to rule. He wants there are 2 reasons for having this law, because this law did not come out of a sudden. There were more than 26 other laws that are colonial and that are racist that were legislated this cadency. But on top of that, Netanyahu also attacked very much the Supreme Court and his ministers. And they managed to change very much in the composition of the Supreme Court. They managed this cadency to get 4 judges to sit in the Supreme Court who are settlers. They live in settlements.
oh my.
So part of the issue was that the Supreme Court was too liberal. And they said it very much. They criticized what they call the active legislation or active role that the Supreme Court is taking and trying to interpret the situation using also international law. They wanted to end that, so they created a different situation in the Supreme Court. We already appealed to the Supreme Court against this law. And there are another 6 appeals that reach to the Supreme Court. We don't believe that the Supreme Court will deny it totally, because it is known, even when it was very highly estimated, the Supreme Court, it tried always to keep the balance and to preserve what is called the status quo in Israel. Now we think that even they will not be able to take a good decision on that, but we believe that at least if they criticize the law, or if they put some kinds of restrictions on the law, that will be also an accomplishment. But for us, eventually the struggle is to abolish totally the law and not to do modifications. For my regrets, some of those who voted against the law wants modifications and not going all the way to abolish the law.
Thank you. Sylvia.
I had not heard that somebody from the U.S. Congress spoke against you. Can you tell us?
No, in the Knesset, not in the...
Oh, okay. Okay. Never mind.
They're using the fact that I'm here.
Clarification. I heard that and shifted also. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Can you?
I'll try to tell her. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you.
So a couple of things. I was very glad to hear you use the word fascist. That's been brought back into fashion, the U.S. with Donald Trump being called a fascist, and I agree that he is, going on Mussolini's definition of a military aggressive leader, etc. But what you're describing here now as a race law sound a lot to me like the Nuremberg laws that were passed back in 1935 in another country, where it too changed the relations between the master race and the other races that were within this country. And I just took a quick look at Wikipedia, and again, it's very evident that there's a similarity, very close similarity to the two laws. A couple of things that leads, my question is leading up to is there becoming a more common use of the term fascist to describe Netanyahu in Israel? I know the former chief of staff or somebody did. There has been a couple of Israeli historians who have written about Likud Party's fascist origins going back to the 1930s in Poland. And Begin was denounced regularly as a fascist, as he was. And so I'm wondering, is it rhetorically really good, in the United States, calling settlers, that's sort of a positive term, because I think what pops into people's minds is Little House on the Prairie. When in fact, what the settlers are, I would argue, are much closer to brown shirts in the 1930s, who are basically a paramilitary force suppressing the minorities in Germany. So I just throw that out there as consideration for rhetorical purposes. And just one final thing, the Ministry of Strategic Affairs, there's been a couple lawsuits filed now. And to Americans, we've been bought into this idea that Russia has interfered in our election, when in fact all the evidence is, when you look at foreign newspapers, including Haaretz, is that it was Israeli Strategic Affairs and various private intelligence agencies that regularly Trump works with from Israel that are the true people who did the true culprits, who did the interference. And Trump has pronounced himself Israel's best friend and a fellow fascist, you could say, of Netanyahu. But on that same point, Israel's second best friend died today, McCain. I did a quick search, and McCain has regularly denounced, Obama for not supporting Netanyahu. So anyway, could you clarify a little bit about some of those political relations, including with people like McCain? Or you can pass over that considering he died today. But,
pass over that, and but the rhetoric and the term fascist.
Well, I just want to say that if you think that Israel has interfered in your elections, that's because it is an internal issue. Some people look at Israel as not only the best ally, but as part of this United States of America. No, but that doesn't make it, legal or accepted or whatsoever. But it is known that yes, Netanyahu wanted to change the situation in the United States. It doesn't mean that the situation was great before. It doesn't mean that there wasn't support to the Israeli governments, including Netanyahu's government, and military aid and other kind of support, political support, existed always. The veto was used many times in the United Nations to protect the Israeli policies. On the other hand, calling it fascist, or some people think that we should use the terminology of have components of fascism in their policy, and not saying it in this way because of the sensitivity that is existing historically among the Jewish people, and the minute you speak in such a way, nobody wants to listen to you, or nobody wants to hear. I want to tell you that you are talking about Begin as a fascist, and we know exactly the history. But these days, people hope that the Likud of Begin is still existing, because this is not to be compared at all. I have to tell you that the only member of the coalition who abstained against this law was the son of Begin, Benjamin Begin, who is serving now as a member of the Knesset, and it looks like his last cadency because of many positions that he took. I'm not saying he is suddenly a left. I'm not saying he quit the Likud, but he is still understanding the Likud with the liberal values that he thinks that should exist. Yeah, the Likud shifted very much, but there are more even dangerous situation with the Jewish Home Party and with Lieberman's party. Those are, what to say, fascists?
Yeah.
Eddie has a question. I want to say, if you see this on your table, there are more on the back table. 1 month from this weekend, the last week in September, there will be a wonderful convention conference of the national conference, the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. Also many wonderful and impressive speakers, and times to get together and learn more and develop more analysis and solidarity around support for Palestinian rights. And Eddie, and then, okay, Ben.
I wonder it's very disappointing to see what Mahmoud Abbas is doing with the Palestinian Authority, and and the conflict with Hamas and so on in Gaza. Would it at all be practical for, instead of a two-state solution, which is now, of course, with this law now a dead on arrival, would it be possible to support a three-state solution where Gaza becomes an independent country? I think the chances for recognition of Gaza internationally, is that worth thinking about? Is that worth any kind of strategic consideration?
Well, usually in this tour I was asked, the two-state solution is dead, why don't you ask for a one-state solution? Yeah. Now this is new for me, a three-state solution. I'm sorry. Well, of course not. Of course not. First of all, the occupier can decide what they want. It's not up to the occupier to decide the future of those who are under occupation. At least this is the basic human law that we understand, that people who are under occupation those are the ones who decide to liberate themselves and how they want to practice the right of self-determination. This is first. So Netanyahu decided, and I know that this law is meant to kill the two-state solution.
Oh, yeah.
But it is not creating a three-state solution. It is creating officially, because it is on the ground, one apartheid state solution. This is what existing. And I've been saying this, maybe we should stop saying two-state solution, because it makes it sound like also Israel or the Jewish people are still struggling to establish their own state. No, there is a one state existing, and we are struggling to establish the Palestinian state alongside Israel, because there is no question mark about the existence of Israel. Nobody is saying throw them to the sea. Nobody is saying that Israel do not have the right to exist. Israel is one of the most powerful countries, not only in the Middle East. So the issue today is to fight for the existence and the creation of, first of all, to liberate from the occupation, the Israeli occupation, to stop the occupation, and for the Palestinians to practice their right of self-determination. The division that is happening among the Palestinians is very, I don't want to use the word upsetting, because it's not upsetting, it's deeper than that. It makes us furious, it makes us angry, because the only one who is benefiting out of this division is the occupation and Israel. And you know what? Israel wants to create three emirates or small islands. But Israel will be Israel, annexing as much as it can from the occupied territory. There will be the north of the West Bank, disconnected from the south of the West Bank, because Israel is now trying to evacuate what is called the belt or the corridor that connect north and south West Bank, and to separate Gaza. The negotiations that are happening now is aiming mainly not to ease the siege over Gaza, but to separate Gaza from the Palestinian collective or the Palestinian people, and to create Gaza alone, south of West Bank alone, and north alone, and they will have some kind of a small autonomy, not a state, and they will be controlled, military and whatever, by Israel. This is what they are aiming for. This is what the law says. This is what the moving the embassy to Jerusalem and finishing the issue of Jerusalem says, and now attacking the issue of the refugees. If you look at all of that, these are looks like the components of the deal of the century that will be proposed very soon, it looks like.
Thank you. Yes.
Stand up.
That's okay. You can stay sitting if you would like. And
Well, my name. Okay. First of all, my name is Martin Medansky, and you know, it just seems more than anything else, this is the tragedy is that both the Israeli Jews and the Palestinians, I mean, they eat basically the same food. All the food we serve here, Israelis eat too. Eat the same food. They listen to a lot of the same music, and they love the same. They both love the land. Both the Jews and the Palestinians love the land. It's just tragic that we can't find a way to live together. I mean, live together in a situation that would be fair and equal for everybody.
How can you live with someone who wants to displace you?
Is what I mean by that. And, you know, I know I'm about to make it sound a little controversial, but I know that there are there are a lot of Israeli Jews who don't like what Netanyahu is doing. And many of them have left Israel and will come to this country or move to Europe. I know there are a million Israelis in the United States, and I know you can't force, I'm not advocating we force anybody out of this country and deport people. But maybe we should try to encourage the Israelis, particularly those Israelis who don't like what Netanyahu is doing, to go back to their own country. Even if they become U.S. citizens, go back to Israel and work with the Palestinians and work with the Democratic Jews to get Netanyahu out and put a government in there that will work for a just situation for both the Israeli Jews and the Palestinian people.
And Ida did mention the participation, participation of Israeli Jews in Tel Aviv in the movement. Do you have anything to respond?
I just want to say that for my regret, most of the Jews who are coming from the United States are going to the settlements and are actually being the most fanatic fascist settlers among those. Because even among the settlers, there are settlers who are there for economic reasons, for the benefits that the government is giving them, and they are not so ideological. But the most fanatic ideologically are coming from the United States. So I doubt if you are giving a good solution.
Well, I'm talking about Israelis. I'm talking about Israelis who have come to this country. And again, I'm not advocating deporting anybody.
No.
But I'm
And
saying encourage
David,
them to
just
go
second.
back and you know, fight for a better government.
I'm Michael McPherson, the Executive Director of Veterans for Peace, and maybe what I'm about to say I'm out of place. I've heard three things that, at least for me, feel, I don't know, strange, but uncomfortable. And maybe you're not going to feel this way when you're used to it. As a person of color, you know, I feel some solidarity. So the first thing was saying that settlers sound innocuous. To Native Americans, the term settlers, indigenous people here in this country, certainly doesn't sound innocuous. And the idea of settlers in today, in 2018, is not innocuous because there's no place we should be having settlers. So your job is to help people understand that settlers is not innocuous. Don't let that be thought of in that way. And mostly, reason it makes me feel a little strange is because that's really going to be a job of white people to talk to other white people, which gets back to your thing. U.S. Jews going to have to struggle harder with other U.S. Jews to do what you're talking about. And that's, I don't really have a discussion, I'm just telling you that's what's going to have, just like white people have to struggle with white people to deal with white supremacy, which is connected to what's happening here. So I just want to say that, in solidarity with you. Oh yeah, and the third thing, this is the third thing, your question. I'm guessing you never heard a Palestinian come up with that idea. I'm guessing the idea of a third three-state solution, you probably never heard a Palestinian say that. And I know you wanted to test it out because it might have been your idea maybe, but you should ask a Palestinian friend, someone that you have a relationship with. And so I guess what I'm asking you all and I have to do this as a man because I'm an oppressor as well. Some questions I have and stuff like that, I have to go to a woman who knows me and I know her, we trust each other to ask certain questions. I can't just be up and just asking any woman any kind of question. So I'm just asking you all, as white people, as Jews, to think about what you're saying to someone who's here that's trying to educate us, but and ask good political questions, but also think about, what you're asking, because, if you hear stuff like this all the time, I know you have to be like, damn, So that's all.
I have discussed this with internet, with
Okay.
electronic intifada.
Afterwards, you can discuss it in the alley at 8:00.
I gotta say something in defense defense of my use of
No,
the word
no,
settler. Please,
no.
just
Oh.
a second.
No, you don't need to defend. You
talk
don't
about
need
it
to
later.
defend it. We know, yeah. Yeah, and 1, 2, 2, 1. You had your hand up quite a while. A lot of the guys are asking questions.
Yes, that's
Any
another
women?
thing. Yes.
I know. But we did hear from a woman, so that's okay. That's fair. Okay, go ahead and then next. Oh, and David David was next. David was absolutely the first next.
I don't know where things are going to go. History is hard to predict, but I'd say the situation is very unstable. There have been a number of countries that tried to be a single religion or a single this or that, the other thing. New England thought it was going to be all congregational. Didn't last very long. The papal states in the middle of Italy thought they'd be all Catholic under the Pope. Didn't last very long. These things are unstable. They don't last long because children don't always think the way their parents did. And you can't pin it down that way. But also there's a lot of division already within the Jews, the Jewish community. I remember talking to one Jew when I was in Israel who said she was in favor of a two-state solution. Judea for the real Jews and Israel for the fake Jews. Now, part of it got me thinking, if all the non-Jews left, would the Jewish community fall apart and fight each other and blow up? Yeah, I'm not suggesting that all the non-Jews leave, but in other words, what I'm saying is we're in a very fragile situation. It's really hard to tell where things are going to end up and how long they can stay that way. I wonder if you want to comment on these internal Israeli divisions.
This is a comment on, how about a question? A question?
I see two women on stage. Women over there. Who is first? Oh, yes, but
This is Hosina. Is the mic still working?
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you comment on international governmental bodies?
Not working.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
The connection is the problem.
An international response from other governmental bodies since the law was passed.
International
Bodies? Yeah, has there been an international response?
The only response that we know of is that Mogherini, the foreign minister of the EU, has expressed her in the United Nations, and we are going to hold more meetings to get to people understand what is this law about. Last November, when we were still debating about the law, of September, we are holding a meeting with Ms. Mogherini and other foreign ministers in the European, in the EU, which probably will bring more attack on us and incitement against us. But we are insisting to educate the international community about what is going on. That will be a chance also to tell you that we are trying also to educate some Congress women and men about this law. We are not giving up. Even if there will be a letter issued by some congressmen and women and sent to the Israeli government and published, that will be one step ahead. That's why using those postcards and telling your congresswomen and men that you are expecting from them also to express a position, that will be a good idea too.
Florence has a question, and there's a question back here too. Florence first.
It's really not a question. I would say, have you considered Betty McCollum as a congresswoman who will be very much on your side?
I met Congresswoman Betty McCollum just 2 days ago. Gave her all the information, and I have to say that she was really on the same page, and we are looking forward to do some work with her on this issue. I hope that she will really, after getting all the information from us, will be able to issue a position, a statement, or whatsoever.
How about over here? He had his hand up. Maybe
And then over here. Yes.
How much influence in the Knesset and in the
First thing, those who know how the different groups among the Jews will know is that the ultra-Orthodox Jews or parties are not the most fanatic when we are talking about the political issues. They are fanatic on issues of religion and secularism. They are fanatic about who is Jew at all. There's a huge debate who is Jew, because the reformists or the conservatives are not real Jews. For them, they are fake Jews. But in the they are behaving in the Knesset very much in a group interest way, meaning they are willing to compromise a lot and to vote exactly how the government wants if they get, benefits out of it. For example, when we started debating about the nation-state law, it is immediately understood that they should be against it, because by the ultra-Orthodox Judaism, a Jewish state will not be established in a political creation, but on a religious base when the Messiah comes. And they don't want to put it usually in the law. And they were not very much in favor of that law. When it passed in its first reading, they got a lot of pressure from Netanyahu because they are part of the coalition. And they promised us, saying, we got a promise from Netanyahu that it's only going to be passed for a primary reading, and it will stop there. But he needs that for his campaign. And of course we did not believe it. Now when we got to the final voting, he immediately pulled out the law of drafting religious young men to the army. And he was telling them, either you vote or I will promote this law. And this is a huge issue for them. And of course, part of the opposition will vote with Netanyahu, or the so-called opposition, will vote with Netanyahu on that law. So they voted, believing again that Netanyahu will keep his promise. 1 week has passed after the law. Netanyahu declared that in 2 weeks, the religious parties have to agree to the new drafting law, otherwise he's going to elections. You have to understand, Netanyahu is acting in a way that he is creating conflicts on purpose in his coalition. He wants to go to election. He is dying to go to election because he is in a huge race with the police. The police are investigating 4 cases of corruption that Netanyahu had made. And they are very close of closing and submitting the charges against him. So he is trying to create conflicts in his government so that he can go. Maybe, in the next 2 days, we may hear that that's it, we are going to elections. And then it will be on January next year. So this is the aim of Netanyahu. He is ideologically for this law, but tactically also he is creating these conflicts because he wants election. Yes. Dale.
Okay, my name's Gerald Carter. I'm using my junior high teacher voice. I have one geographic reminder point and one question. The geographic reminder is this. Along Minnesota's south border, the whole width from South Dakota to Wisconsin, 2 counties deep, is the 1st congressional district. Turn that 90 degrees and it looks somewhat like Israel, West Bank, Gaza. Same shape, but it is bigger. Israel, West Bank, Israel proper, West Bank, and Gaza all combined are smaller geographically than the Minnesota 1st Congressional District. That's the point. The question is, you mentioned a 2% increase in the threshold for access to seats in the Knesset. Did that increase in the threshold have any effect on any of the Zionist parties?
Although I didn't make the connection with the first comment, but we are a small country, but we are making all the world busy with us. So it's not a matter of how big. Anyway, as to the the 2%, the very interesting thing that who initiated changing the threshold was the so-called Minister of Security, and actually he's the Minister of War, Mr. Lieberman. He was the one who submitted the bill before it became a law. The only one who was almost not entering the Knesset because of that law was Mr. Lieberman. He saved his self like in the last minute. He was almost not there. So did it avoid? It avoided another fanatic group that was led by Eli Yishai, who used to be a minister, who used to head Shas, which is ultra-Orthodox Jewish party for those who came from Arab countries mainly. And he couldn't make it. He couldn't get to the Knesset. At a certain point, we were afraid that Meretz is not going to make it. Meretz is a liberal, left-wing politically party that has the best positions among the other opposition in the Knesset. There was real danger that they might not make it, but they made it.
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me? I was wondering if you could let us know any organizations or ways to follow how the backlash is going for you in terms of you being here, and how we could support you and your work and any backlash you're receiving for being here speaking.
Well, it's all over the newspapers today. Tomorrow morning, there's time, midnight here, I will be interviewed in radio, but in Hebrew, and TV, also in Hebrew, back home, reacting to this attack and incitement against the work I'm doing here. You can also follow my page and Twitter. I'm on Twitter too, but it's mainly in Hebrew for my regret. Jerusalem Post are going to publish something about it. If it is going to be continued, and if they are going to bring more regulations to prohibit us from speaking out, you would be hearing, and you can follow Adala Center, which is a legal center that usually defend us in courts and take these issues to the Supreme Court. You have to understand, in the last cadency, they changed a lot of the regulations in the Knesset how you say, on our honor. They changed a lot of the regulations. One of the changes they made is that we are not allowed anymore to travel abroad sponsored by an organization that is calling for BDS. So till now, the big deal is that till now, the ethics committee in the Knesset, their rule of authorizing our traveling, not only us, the whole members of the Knesset, was to check the finance issue and to be sure that there is no corruption in these sponsoring those kinds of trips. Now they are given, without being said, a political tool. They used not to interfere in any of our political work, because if we are doing something wrong, we should be investigated by the police or by anybody else. Now they are checking the organizations that are sponsoring our trip, and if there is anybody who is supporting BDS, they will not authorize. We went to the Supreme Court by this case. We are waiting to see what will happen in the Supreme Court. But we don't know what they are going to punish if somebody challenged this. Again, this is an issue that might also get to me when I go back home now. So I don't care. I mean, this is a political struggle. And without challenging the new oppression tools, there's no way to reach anywhere. And this is part of what we are doing. We are challenging the oppressive rules, and we want to see how they are going to react. Now they are thinking of new punishments about those who are doing international work. They also have this law of suspension of members of Knesset that was legislated through this cadency, that says that if 80 members of the Knesset voted against my existence in the Knesset, they can expel me. So I'm elected democratically by my constitution, but my those who are opposing my political agenda can expel me from the Knesset.
How convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. So this is, every day they are bringing new and new regulations that we need to face.
They're really afraid of the word getting out.
We probably should wind up and maybe like a question, two more questions, and then we'll, this has been exciting and excellent. Yes, question.
Yeah, we all know that our U.S. Congress is Zionist-occupied territory. We know that, right? But I was wondering if you saw any opportunities to work, in particular with the sister from Detroit that was elected, Talib, is it? There's 3 new women who have been elected. The sister from New York, who actually, well, she's going to be elected, right? Yeah. So, and she was actually confronted very quickly. Ocasio, right? And she was confronted very quickly for earlier statements that she had made in support of Palestinian rights. So I was just wondering if you could comment on maybe possibilities for work, you know, and the beginning of some kind of pro-Palestinian caucus in the Congress.
Is there any other question? Let's have the 2 questions and I will. Oh, okay. It's better. Okay.
I found your statement or sharing that a lot of the Israeli people or Jewish people who are going to Israel now are very extremist. Interesting, because over the years, as I listened to and read stories about what was happening in Israel and what happened when the Soviet Union relaxed immigration, allowing the Jews to go to Israel, that I got the impression, and not just once, but many, many times, that there was a lot of radical energy that came from the Soviet Union Jewish people that migrated to Israel. And they were going in the settlements and changing things. I'm wondering how you can compare those two, my older perception and your new perception.
Well, as to future possibilities, we need to wait and see what will happen in your upcoming elections and to see what's going on. But I have to say that for the first time I'm coming to the United States, and I came in the past and I had speaking tours, I have the feeling that there's a different atmosphere. Something is going on, more and more people are more aware and take a position than in the past. We are going to explore all the possibilities, and we want to see who is who, and we will try to connect, and this is also part of the help that you can give us. About the Russians who immigrated to, the Russian Jews who immigrated to Israel, most of them were, in my opinion, brainwashed by the Zionist movement, by the establishment in Israel, and because of their economic situation, also part of them moved to the West Bank and lived in the settlements. Many of them are not ideologically that fanatic. There are some of them, you can look at Victor Lieberman and take him as an example, as fanatic. But from the United States of America, mainly who is coming is mostly the most ideological, fanatic side of the Jewish people, especially with the fact that more and more Jews, or most of the Jews in the United States of America are reformists, as much as I understand. And the situation back home with what is going on of raising the power of religious forces and trying to dominate the religious establishment is dominated by the ultra-Orthodox, but also the delegitimization and not accepting the reformists as part of the Jewish people, or thinking that they need to be rehabilitated and become better Jews, is not making the people who have liberal minds, who have different values, really to come to Israel, but more those who find in Israel today a place for their ideological points of view.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again. Thank you for an authentic, on the ground to us coming here. If you have postcards, you can leave them on the table. We'll pick them up or put them in the basket at the back of the room. Sue Ann is holding the basket high, sort of high, up a little. So thank you all for coming, and sorry about our technical difficulties with air conditioning and speakering. Thank you for coming. Wonderful turnout. Thank you for especially the WAM Middle East Committee workers who put this together. Sarah for picking up all the food, and thank you all for your contributions, your questions, and your solidarity. Thank you.